What it is, y'all, it is your old boy Pilk, and as we approach 30th anniversary, I've been asking myself a question, and if you were at the live stream last night, we had a big, heavy debate about this. Will ALISE revitalize CROZZO? Now, before I get too deep into this, let's go ahead and jump into the event here. Let me explain why I asked this question. I think it's an important question. Because CROZZO, I'm going to go ahead and basically focus on taking out Aisha, because if I'm honest, we can't do this and have Aisha alive. She's gotta be sacrificed for the greater good. So here we go, taking out Aisha. Now, as I was saying, the explanation for my kind of thought process on this is, normally, under normal circumstances, CROZZO and Argonaut have been very, very, very close in damage. I mean very close in damage. Argonaut has a 50% strength, not magic, but strength and fire buff. CROZZO has none of the above. CROZZO only comes in and does a big debuff. Case in point, what I'm about to do now. Now, he also has, he debuffs strength, magic, and agility, but the other thing he debuffs is your fire resistance, your physical resistance. Now, that said, normally when you SA with these guys, they SA for roughly, give or take, about the same amount of damage. They're not really that far apart. And as you start to analyze why that necessarily is the case, you begin to realize that what happens here is that CROZZO has a lot of critical and penetration in his SA. So, or in his attacks in general, and in his passive. So, CROZZO basically keeps up with Argonaut without any buffs because of his passive. Now, that said, then you throw Haruhime into the mix. Now, they both get the same roughly strength buff. And I could definitely see where CROZZO alone, without a fire buff, could still kind of keep up. I mean, there's just no reason why he wouldn't be able to. There's just no reason why. Now, once again, Aisha does kind of have to croak for us to do this test right. So we're going to kind of focus on taking her out here in a moment. So we're going to do, let's make sure that he's got his, because she takes away, she takes away strength buffs, and we don't have our strength buff here. We have a fire attribute buff, so we're going to try that one more time and see if we can kind of do this without relying too much on, all that other stuff. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and do Sheikah on this turn. Let's see. Does he have his strength buff? He does have strength. So strength is 50% up. Fire damage is 50% up. If we go over to CROZZO, CROZZO is just got debuffs. That's it. Like, obviously it's not going to really affect his outgoing damage here, but he also debuffed our opponents down. They were down 20%. They're now down to 55%. So he does they get a 10% debuff from our assist and a 25% debuff from CROZZO himself. That should yield us some pretty respectable numbers. Now, to be fair, physical is basically 0. So don't expect magic numbers from these two. I wish if they had been debuffed physical down 25%, we would basically expect to see right about 250,000 damage per hit. Here, I think we're going to be lucky to see 150. So check your expectations on that. We're not really looking at the damage numbers. What we're looking at is the damage disparity. So let's see what they do here and create a little comparison. So I'm going to do a double SA with just these two. Now, the reason Leafia is here, is because Leafia is going to give us a 60% fire buff. And if you're doing the math on this, CROZZO should get a huge buff out of that, and ARGO shouldn't get much of anything. You'll get like 10% extra damage. Alright, so both those were crits, both those are right about the 250 range. That's what I wanted to see, actually. So that's quite nice. Now, if he gets crits, we'll probably see about 200, maybe a little more. Not even, but he didn't get crits. He he didn't get crits. So, unfortunately, it's not showcasing what I want to showcase at the moment. But it will be very, very interesting. Most of the time when I was kind of doing the prelim tests on this, CROZZO would get a lot of crits and Argonaut not so much. Now, a lot of that has to do with the fact that we have increased the critical rate and we just had an RNG hiccup there. But if you really think about it, what you saw there is very indicative of that. If you take the crit away, that's about a 200k hit from Argonaut, and then CROZZO go with like one little less than 150. Makes a lot of sense. Like, it starts to add up, and the disparity really isn't all that crazy. That said, let's go ahead and jump into the next section of the test here. And that is, we're going to essay with Haruhime and essay with Leafia. Then we're going to meet up with our heroes one more time. And basically, after those two essays, we're going to assess what the damage outcome is from these two with those things applied. So let's go ahead and I'm going to have to do a little bit of adjustment here, and I'll be right back. All right, so we're here at the critical point where we're going to have to go ahead and make some decisions. Now, Aisha is debuffed. All the CROZZO debuffs were just reset on her. They do remove your buffs, and they will remove their own debuffs, so you have to be careful with that. Ryu is down 20%, so she will get a little bit more damage than Aisha will, and that's kind of indicative of what we've seen. Now, the one thing to be aware of here is the way I've set this up, and really the only way to set this up properly. CROZZO or Argo will have a higher critical buff possibility. CROZZO is built into his passive. He does it very often, but he didn't cooperate on the first run. But Argo will most likely get a crit. Like, if he doesn't get a crit, we'll have a problem. And odds are pretty good he'll get penetration. And we'll talk about the mathematics and how this all works out. Now, I'm really hoping CROZZO gets a crit. And the theory going here is typically when CROZZO crits and gets penetration, which is in his passive skill, he hits about on the same level, SA-wise, as Argo with just his buffs, no crit, no penetration. So, if Argo hits natively, and I know he's going to crit and he's going to penetrate, we'll math it out, with now 60% and 100%, 60% fire and 100% strength, CROZZO should hit way harder now that he's got 100% strength at 65. They both have 65, not 60, 65% fire. So remember, CROZZO was on his level, give or take, when they didn't, when he didn't have any buffs. So now that he has these buffs, he should be leaps and bounds above. Now, because they do remove buffs, I'm going to have to do Haruhime's buff here in the front, so the numbers are going to look significantly better because it is a triple SA. It's just the only way I can, like, really make this happen. But let's go ahead and take a look at the numbers and see what we've come up with here. Alright, remember, she's not going to do damage. She's just going to do a buff skill. This will give us 100% strength. This guarantees it can't be removed. Okay. So now we're just looking at the raw numbers and the disparity. We're not trying to compare who did necessarily crazy damage or whatever. We're comparing the disparity. All right. So 405 and 305. And funny enough, the 305 was on the lower level. So I'm going to have to go back, screenshot this, and analyze this. CROZZO, what you got, buddy? Critical, 500k. So, as I said, CROZZO significantly hit harder. By 100,000, he hit harder. So, very, very, very interesting. And bear in mind, Alicia is only going to give you 60, not 65, but the 5% difference is basically made up by RNG. Like, legitimately, there's a range of about a certain percentage, roughly about 5%, that RNG can make up. So let's go take a look at the numbers, analyze this, and I'll be right back. For a quick comparison here, first things first, Argo is on the Far left, CROZZO was on the right in the order in which they attacked. ARGO did a 405, 642 with critical and penetration. Now, without critical, you could take that down to about 300-ish K. Maybe not quite that low, but penetration would be another 50K on top of that, give and or take. So if we say that's like a 250 without crit and pen, I called it. This is double the attack with crit and penetration. Now, if I've got to be fair, the main reason that ARGO got crit and penetration is because we had the lean ace sack. And in most circumstances, if I am going to be completely fair and impartial here, you're probably going to use them both on the same team with lean ace sack and bring ALISE in later in the fight. Most likely, in most circumstances. Or maybe you go crazy and you put Haruhime in the sack. Either way, phrasing. I wouldn't mind. I gotta be... Anyway. So, in all honesty, if you're really going to look at this, CROZZO did usurp Argonaut completely. In fact, if you look down here, ARGO, his hit was 302 with penetration. You could pretty much take that down to 250, 225, give or take. Let's just say 250 for the sake of giving him, RNG adjustments and, without posturing. Let's just take 50K off for penetration and 100K off for critical at this juncture. If this got crit and pen, do the math. So CROZZO usurped ARGO by a country flippin' mile. And when we're talking about this in an AoE situation, we're very, very, very much talking about each 500K hit with 2 units is 1,000,000 damage. 3 units is 1.5 million. 4 units is 2 mil damage. But I'm going to be real. If ARGO, on the other hand, is hitting for 405 with the new ALISE, and both of these dudes, if you attack with them both, and let's face it, they're designed to be used as a pair, their combo attack hit for well north of 100K. In fact, if I watch the playback again, let's see if I can pull it up here, their combo hit for 185 and 165 respectively. Both with criticals, both with penetration. So you're talking about units that just did a collective 1.2 mil damage to each unit just on one SA. Now, to be fair, that's 2 units doing that, but with AoE units, you've really got to start putting things in consideration. The unit they hit the hardest was 0 on her debuff, and the other unit over here, the one they actually didn't hit as hard, was -20. Or no, she was up 20, wasn't she? Was she -20 or was she up 20? I'd have to go back and double check the footage. Yeah, Ryu was down 20%, but still, you're talking about some substantial damage. So, in the initial setup for this, I was debating, is CROZZO going to hit significantly harder than ARGO? Yes. I think with Haruhime, it's easy to say that he caught up to him, and now with the 60% buff, in this case 65% buff, but once again, with RNG, whatever 5% is not that much. ARGO has been usurped by CROZZO. But I think, in my humble opinion, ALISE has easily breathed new life into both of these units. If you're going to hit the new banners and you're going to go after ALISE, I think it's worth hitting these guys. I think it's worth hitting these two as well. I really honestly do. Now, I'm going to be fair. This is not a War Games build. This is like a 7th zone build. This is not even Record Buster, because Record Buster is always single target. But this is definitely a 7th zone build, a boss build, a Familia Rush build, something like that. This is that kind of a build, and I really think they're going to pay dividends. So my answer to you guys that were asking me, are ARGO and CROZZO good? They're good, and they just got better. So if you haven't pulled for ARGO and CROZZO, we're getting so much Iris on this event, I honestly think in my heart of hearts, if you do not have the Maxima broken, before the banners go away tonight, at least chase them. At least chase to have one, and then you can make your decisions later. But if you don't have any at all, you're going to miss out. definitely hit the ARGO and CROZZO banner if you're going after ALISE. That is my honest-to-goodness opinion. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section down below. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. We'll be back at you guys with more Danmachi here in just a little bit when we do the live stream. Hope to see y'all there.